Before we get to the unfinished business item number 1, it's a matter of housekeeping that I want to address. And Jennifer, if you would pull up a letter from Town Council that was addressed to the board members. At the prior meeting, certain allegations were made about potential conflicts of interest with board members. And I asked our Town Council to look into this matter to see if indeed there was some potential conflict of interest as it relates to voting members of this board. The results are in this document, and I want to clear the air as it relates to this matter. Town Council, as our Chief Ethics Officer, has looked into this and has determined there is no conflict of interest, having interviewed the various parties involved. And so I would like to say thank you for looking into this. And really, as a board, it is our responsibility to monitor ourselves and to make baseless allegations to claim conflicts of interest without proof is damaging and to our town and the potential personal integrity of folks that take time out to represent this town. And so I feel it was an unfortunate situation. We looked into it, and I feel that we are ready to move on. But I will open it up to any of the board members, either that made the claim or had the claim directed at them, if there's any other matter that needs to be addressed before we dispense with it and get on with the vote, because this gets to the upcoming next discussion item, which is Tollgate. And so these allegations were made in direct reference to potential voting conflicts on Tollgate. So I think we have to clear the air and before moving on to the next matter.
Was this in the packet online? Was this available?
It was not.
Okay.
I just provided it to the board.
I think I'd like to read it out loud just for the record. It does involve me, obviously. This is a memo written by Town Attorney Todd Moore over here on my right, dated 7 May 2018. It says, regarding alleged conflict of interest, NC zoning district amendments. At the April BOMA meeting, Alderman Ben Dilks and fellow Alderman Brandon Bell asked fellow Alderman Brandon Bell to recuse himself from the discussion and vote on the zoning text amendments to the NC zone, citing several conflicts of interest between Brandon's employer, Gresham Smith and Partners, and the developer that had requested these zoning amendments, Regent Homes. Ben did not specify what these conflicts were at the meeting. Brandon stated that he was not aware of any conflicts and proceeded to discuss and vote on this matter. Later in the meeting, Alderman Graham Shepard stated that he agreed with Ben's statements and that there was an appearance of a conflict of interest and that Alderman Bell can benefit personally and professionally by this rezoning. An accusation of a conflict of interest without a factual basis does not require an investigation. However, because this matter is coming back before the BOMA this month, I, as Todd's saying, wanted to get information from Ben, Graham, and Brandon to understand the allegations and advise accordingly. To summarize what Ben and Graham have provided me, they believe that, one, because Brandon is purportedly made statements that he is supportive of the zoning amendments because they are proposed by Regent Homes, that this is an abuse of official power. And two, because Brandon and his employer have participated in the same industrial associations and served within the same organizations as Regent Homes and Dave McGowan, that there could be an improper connection. Neither Ben nor Graham have alleged that Brandon has a financial, ownership, or employment interest in the development or with the developer. Brandon has denied that he and his employer, including Steve Johnson, a senior executive with GS&P, have any personal and business interest with Dave McGowan and Regent Homes. In short, no evidence has been provided that Brandon has a conflict of interest under the town's code of ethics. There's also no evidence or even a factual allegation that Brandon has a direct conflict of interest that would require him to recuse himself from the vote and discussion pertinent to the state conflict of interest laws. Ben and Graham allege that Brandon's public support of the Regent Homes as the developer could be beneficial to Brandon and his employer in the future. This type of hypothetical allegation does not establish even an intent, a direct and indirect conflict of interest that would require Brandon to disclose any such relationship, much less a direct conflict that would require him to recuse himself from the discussion and vote on the matter. Finally, although not technically related to the alleged conflict of interest, the vote on the text amendment should not be based on the reputation and representations of the developer. Although I fully expect Regent Homes to move forward as the developer and as planned, this is not guaranteed. The vote should be based on whether these changes to the NC zone are in the best interest of the town, regardless of the developer involved and specific concept plans that have been presented. The LDO requires that text amendments to be consistent with the general plan and not have a deleterious, thank you, it's a big one, effect on surrounding properties on the town as a whole. As we have seen in the past, the property owners and developers and these specific plans may change. So, you know, I'm gonna keep this brief. As you know, I've been on this board, I think about 3.5 years. I've been an architect for 18 years. I think originally when Graham and I ran, I was actually worked for a developer, you know, which apparently is a problem. But you know, not in 3.5 years has this ever been an issue for Alderman Shepherd or Alderman Dilks until it is something that they don't agree with me on. And I'm very disappointed that this happened. I'm sorry we had to put the community through this, but I appreciate our town attorney writing this letter and doing the research that was required. So I hope this puts the end to this. You know, if we're going to continue to bring baseless claims to this board, I think it is a disservice to the community and to the board of mayor and aldermen. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Alderman Bell.
I'll respond to that. I'll restate my request that you recuse yourself from this vote. I still believe you have a conflict of interest. I don't disagree with Todd's analysis that you don't violate the statute as far as having a direct financial or indirect, but I believe you have a conflict of interest here. I don't think you can, without bias, vote on this issue. You went out to an industry conference and recruited this developer to come to Thompson Station and do this work, and now you're voting on a zoning amendment to facilitate that work. That in itself is a conflict of interest, even if you didn't work in the industry.
No.
The fact that you work in that same industry, to me, is a clear conflict of interest. If it were me working in the automotive industry, if I went to an automotive conference of some sort, went up to a large automotive dealer and said, "Hey, I hear you're looking to put in a automotive dealership. How about Thompson Station? Yeah, you might require a rezone. I think I can make that happen." And then still vote on that rezone, that to me is a clear conflict of interest, and I would never do that.
No.
And it's the same situation here. You made a contact through your industry. You were there as a representative of Gresham Smith. You were not there as a representative of the town of Thompson Station, and you used that to recruit a developer to come here, and now you're paying him back with a favor to rezone his property.
Alderman Dilks, I'm sorry you view it as that way or try to see it or painting the picture in the way you do. You know, just because I'm involved in a urban land institute, which has actually, you know, accountants, lawyers, real estate partners, architects, land planners, and all these different groups, just because I go and try to be a champion and advocate for my town and try to recruit people to come and businesses, that's what champions and aldermen do and mayors do for town. You know, I wish I could kind of point my finger at a opportunity that you guys have helped bring to this town, and I can't, because you're putting up just barriers is all you're doing. So if it doesn't meet your agenda, it's very simple for you all to go on the Google search. I mean, I was curious myself. Steve Johnson and Brandon Bell first hit is a ULI joint panel 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And that's way before any of us were even, I didn't even live in Thompson Station 6 years ago. But it's a conflict of interest. And you know what, do you know if any of your board happens to serve in any boards, or any Nissan executives serve on any boards in town that happen to have, the building, the local building, Home Builders Association on the same board? Have you thought about that? Now, would that create a conflict of interest with any kind of development?
No, because I'm not looking to help my career.
I
could not conceivably help my career.
With the future of cars on the road, would more road projects future road projects help Nissan. I mean, isn't that stupid? It just sounds so silly.
No.
So
this is a
let's move past this.
How about
John.
my example of the dealership? Would you be okay with that?
All right, we're getting into the realm of
No.
hypothetical.
Why can't we let him answer that
We've had
question?
statement
Why can't
rebuttal.
he answer that
Let's go move
question?
on.
This is
All right.
typical. This is
Yeah,
typical
Just
where
shut it down. Don't answer the uncomfortable question.
no one else gets, can I respond to anything or time's up? I don't get to say anything?
No,
you can be-
I'd like to hear it actually. Graham, go ahead.
All right.
Lay it on us.
I'll say this. So I continue to think that Alderman Bell should recuse himself from this vote because he does have an appearance of a conflict of interest. And I'm not, when I say that, I'm not talking about the legal requirement per our town code or the state code or anything like that. I'm talking about the level that you set your own professional ethics bar at. And it looks to me like you've set it very low. And you said publicly, the only reason you supported these zoning amendments, the only reason was because Mr. McGowan was going to be the builder. That's the only reason.
Now, the reason,
This-
what I said, for the record.
Just let me finish, please.
Okay, and we'll correct that statement in a
Okay.
minute.
Make a note of it and you can respond, but let me finish.
All right.
This is an improper reason because elected officials are supposed to be impartial. The bottom line here is I can see clearly how people might think Alderman Bell is using his political office for personal and professional gain. And I can see how people might think he set his ethical standards bar at a low level. And that's because you work as an architect in the real estate development industry. And is it really far-fetched to think that Alderman Bell's collaboration with Mr. McGowan and work behind the scenes for 2 years without any of us even knowing what's going on to get these zoning amendments approved, is it far-fetched really to see that how this might help your career if you decide one day to apply for a position at one of the architectural firms that Mr. McGowan's company does business with? Is this not going to help your career or is it going to hurt your career?
Okay.
I say it's going to help your career, and that's clear, and
Well-
reasonable people can see that.
Okay, well, since you've gone there with your specious arguments yet again, Graham, you took a swing at me, my wife's partner, and you decided to drag our restaurant into the conversation at minute mark 1 hour 47 of the last meeting. I asked the public to look it up. You made inferences, you drew up hypotheticals about how I was going to personally benefit, or my wife and her partner were going to benefit by blocking future restaurants in Tollgate. How asinine. We could sit here all day and we could make up hypotheticals about the aliens landing tomorrow. What are we going to do about that? So we're not here to disprove your conspiracy theories in all the ways that you feel people are not serving this town. And I take umbrage that you decided to go down that path. You went after our town attorney at the last meeting. I don't know who you didn't really go after at that meeting with these same boneheaded allegations. So we're done here.
I'm
All right.
not done.
No, we're done.
I'm not. I have to
Moving on
respond
to
to
this
that.
matter.
I have to respond to that. The reason.
No, you've had your chance. We've all spoken. Alderman Stover is the only one. If you have anything to say, you're welcome to.
Todd,
Time to move on.
Can he legally
All right.
shut down
All
conversation?
right. We're moving on to unfinished business. Agenda item number 1 under unfinished business, public hearing and second reading ordinance 2018-010, an ordinance of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Thompson Station, Tennessee, to amend Table 4.4, permitted uses, Section 4.6, building placement standards, Section 4.7, height restrictions, Table 4.13, NC lot standards, Section 4.9.5, regulations specific to the NC zone, and Section 4.12.2, parking standards within the land development ordinance. In parentheses, Zone Amendment 2018-001. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Mr. Peterson, I think you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is John Peterson, and I live at 3448 Colebrook Drive in Tollgate Village. Please forgive me from varying off of my page-and-a-half script through the last conversation, I feel compelled to say I'm reminded of the absurdist game 7 Steps from Kevin Bacon. And it seems as though the recusal request by Mr. Dilks and Mr. Shepherd is about as absurd as anything I, as a resident, have heard. I feel compelled to say that if we're going to go these steps towards insisting that people be recusing themselves over baseless allegations and innuendo, perhaps you should have done the same when the roadway improvements in front of your neighborhood were approved, because obviously working for the auto industry, as you and Mr. Shepherd do, it wouldn't take most of the residents in the town here in attendance tonight 7 steps, I suspect, to tie roadway improvements back to the benefits to the auto industry by having newer and improved or widened roads. So please forgive me for stepping off of that, but I just felt compelled that in support of Mr. Bell and in support of the mayor, you two really ought to be ashamed of yourselves. So as I said, my name is John Peterson. I'm here tonight to voice my support for the rezoning request to allow the proposed development at the front of Tollgate. I was not able to attend the BOMA meeting last month, but did have the opportunity to view the meeting and the discussion during the first reading. I was disappointed to again see Alderman Dilks and Shepherd level accusations against Mayor Napier and Alderman Bell, this time specifically regarding the rezoning request and proposed retail development. If either Alderman Dilks or Shepherd have actual evidence to substantiate these accusations, then they should come forward tonight with it. However, absent any real evidence showing inappropriate behavior by one of our elected officials, it should be unforgivable for one of our board members to level false accusations or innuendo simply as a political attempt to sway public opinion, and to somehow imply that Dilks and Shepherd alone can maintain the moral high ground on this and other issues runs in direct contradiction to the Chancery Court of Williamson County findings of October 5th, 2017, which stated specifically their failure to behave in a fair and unbiased manner. Rather, the court specifically noted Alderman Bell as an example of how to ask appropriate questions and cited his communications as, and I quote, appropriate and unobjectionable, unquote. If Alderman Dilks or Shepherd have concerns over how to have an appropriate or unbiased discussion of the town's issues, perhaps they should talk far less and listen far more. As shown in the court's rulings, they could learn a lot from others sitting amongst them. The development at the front of Tollgate has been an issue for several years, but has an opportunity to move forward tonight. There are hundreds of residents in Tollgate, each with their own individual ideas of what they would like, and it's taken some compromise by all to get to this point. On 2 different occasions, Dave McGowan and his team at Regents have met with the residents of our community to discuss the Tollgate plans. He has shared his thoughts and listened closely to the residents' comments, and he's worked diligently to find solutions that best incorporate the feedback he's received. Further, the first meeting was videotaped and was posted on Nextdoor so that anyone who could not attend the meeting could still view it. After each of these 3 events, the residents had the opportunity to vote, and each time showed overwhelming support for the plans and the desire to move forward with the project. The commercial portion of the plan will provide restaurants, coffee shops, and other retail space the residents have wished for. The commercial and retail spaces will also provide needed tax revenue critical to the town's financial well-being. Lastly, the mix of retail, commercial, live work, and residential will ensure a development that is both aesthetically pleasing and economically sustainable. Like other residents, I have appreciated the open way in which Mr. McGowan and his entire team have worked with us. They have listened, they have been responsive, and if they felt something would not have worked, have been honest in their discussions with us. As residents, we could ask little more of a developer and I appreciate their efforts. And as a resident of Tollgate Village, I am asking you to approve the motion before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. All right, Mr. Wilson, Brad Wilson.
Phone book, I can stand up to this microphone. I want to thank the board. I know. Brad Wilson, 3064 Americus Drive. I do want to thank the board. We have come a long way, both negative and positive. We've had conversations that have taken lots of turns and twists, and I am going to try to keep it short because John did mention a lot of things that that I do agree with, and I do agree, and I appreciate the discussion prior. David McGowan and I have known each other for many, many years. David McGowan brought this project to me probably 2 years ago at the city of Franklin. We sat around a table and we discussed it. And I said, David, I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see it down there. It'd be great for the town. But if you can only get it approved and put up with the crap that you got to put through. And it's been a lot of back and forth. And I hate it because in my job with the city, dealing with facilities and dealing with the people and Reagan and Smith and others that come here, we have got such a bad name right now. People, the city of Franklin, talking to somebody a few weeks ago, they appreciate it. Because people are now coming to Franklin and wanting to develop in Franklin because of the commotion that kind of takes on a little bit at the planning commission, but at the board level too. So I wish that we could figure out a way that we could make it all work. To Todd's last paragraph, it's staying on task, and I think Todd kind of pushed that and showed that a little bit, that we have a tendency of getting off task a little bit, and that was just a quick note that I made, but there's so much that could be said. I appreciate Bob mentioning tonight about the sewer taps. I think we've got ample capacity based on stuff that I've seen. We've got a developer that has purchased property for a Daly's restaurant or a Daly's gas station who I will use them and spend my tax dollars there. I don't have to have all of that in Tollgate. I'm fine with the townhome concept. I know there's organizations and people that we know that would own commercial businesses and large commercial restaurants, but I would ask any of them, would you put a public restaurant in the back corner of Tollgate? You're not going to get the visibility. And those are just different conversations. I appreciate John. John's more organized than I am, and I do appreciate my time. Thank you. And please approve.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Amy Robertson? Okay, you signed it but didn't want to speak. All right. All right. And Sandy, same thing. You can talk on any topic. Well, we're on public hearing, so you actually can't. All right. Chris, Lori, anyone else wishing to speak on the Tollgate matter during the public hearing?
I'm Larry Simmons, 3116 Hazelton. I've spoke at every meeting on behalf of the Tollgate Action Committee, but I feel like I need to speak tonight. Again, you've seen the votes, you've heard from the residents of Tollgate, you've listened, some of you haven't. I've got to say, I am incredibly disappointed, Ben, with you and Graham. You have not listened. You have not listened to the residents. And honestly, I'm embarrassed when I come to these meetings the way you guys act. It's not the way a town works. We're a small town. We're a community. We work together to make things happen. We reach out. We bring people to the town. We try to make things happen. We don't try to divide the town. And I'm ashamed that I supported both of you. I really am. And that frustrates me. And by the way, on the record, I'm not speaking on behalf of Tollgate Action Committee. I'm speaking on behalf of Larry. My comment is that you both benefit when people buy Nissan vehicles, correct? My understanding is that Regent's Homes, some of their employees and their company has Nissan vehicles. So I would ask that you consider recusing yourselves because it benefits them on behalf of them buying Nissan vehicles.
Larry, that is idiotic.
No.
Larry, let me tell you why that's
Hey,
idiotic.
Ben, I'm sorry. I think I blew it up. No,
Look,
I'm sorry. Is it working again? You turned me off? That's all I was going to say. And again, Ben, I'm sorry. I've got the floor right now. I do ask that you guys vote for this. You've heard it. There's no more needs to be said about it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
I'm going to respond to that. That's an idiotic accusation because
Anyone else wishing to speak at public comment? This is where the board
key
takes
to conflict
input.
of interest is if
We're-
there's a
we haven't
certain
closed public
segment
comment.
that benefits disproportionately.
This is the public's opportunity,
Everybody
not
has
the
an
board
equal
member.
chance to buy Nissan. Everyone has an equal chance to drive on the roads. That is an idiotic statement and accusation, and I'm tired of it. I did call him an idiot.
All right. We're in the formal public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. We'll hear from you. If not, we'll close the public hearing, and it's back to the board. Joe?
Well, again, this amendment was approved at first reading last month. There were a couple of clarifications that were made. Again, I just want to point those out just for the sense of pointing them out. Both of them were under section 4.9.5 regulations specific to the NC zone. Under A, about halfway down through that paragraph, again, we did make the change that if we're going to allow for a 5-foot driveway, alley-loaded driveway, its requirement is going to be a 2-car garage, whereas before it was a 1-car garage. And then under B, under lot coverage, if we're allowing townhomes to take up more than 50% of the lot coverage, that anything over that 50% would have to be, you'd have to make up that space as civic space somewhere else within a 1/4-mile radius. Again, we just clarified that it has to be civic space, not open space, which again is just unusable area. So again, those two changes were made, and again, it's ready for the board approval.
All right. Very good. Can the audience hear Joe? Is it coming through? You can. With all the reverb, I'm trying to make sure that things are getting captured on video, audio, and you can hear out in the audience. Okay. All right. So board, it's back before us for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 2018-010, an ordinance of the Board of Mayor and Alderman of the Town of Thompson Station, Tennessee, to amend Table 4.4, permitted uses, Section 4.6, building placement standards, Section 4.7, height restrictions, Table 4.13, NC lot standards, Section 4.9.5, regulations specific to the NC zone, and Section 4.12.2, parking standards within the LDO zone, which is Zone Amendment 2018-00.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion.
I have a couple things I want to share with the board before we vote. Jennifer, I put some things on a flash drive. You could bring them up. So Larry Simmons made the accusation that I wasn't listening to the people. I want to show two. Yeah. Larry Simmons made the accusation that I wasn't listening to the people. I just want to give two reference points where I absolutely am listening to the people. The first one, the Tollgate campaign flyer, the last file. This document was a flyer that Brian Stover and I took around to every resident of Tollgate Village while we were campaigning. If you'll scroll down to the bottom, Jennifer. And number 4, we said the town needs to hold firm in its neighborhood commercial zoning in the front of Tollgate. The developer must honor their commercial in the front, residential in the back commitments to a walkable mixed-use neighborhood. That's what I told everyone I was going to do if elected. Here I am elected. I'm holding to that promise, and that's one reference point. People even in Tollgate overwhelmingly elected us over candidates that supported an alternate position of putting residential in the front in additional. Now, the second reference point I want to show is when the initial survey went out from the TAC, back to the flash drive, sorry. And go to Tollgate Village and Berry Farms survey. Now, I did my own survey of the respondents. At the time, there was about 95% favorability for the plan that was presented back in December from Regis Homes. The plan's since changed. But I got about 100 responses to my own survey on that, asking some alternate questions and providing some facts there the people did not have before they voted in that. If you go down, keep going. Don't need to keep going. One more, I think. You're back up at 2. And yeah, try slide 6. And could you put it in presentation view? For some reason, it's not showing the whole slide. I forget when that survey went out. It went out from the TAC. It was sometime in January, I believe. But yeah, everybody responded. We got an email address in there, and I just replied to those email addresses with a survey. So that was out of 95% support. You did. You did. I can prove it. I'll resend it to you.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Point is, I got 100 responses.
Stay on task and just
so this graph, I'm not sure why it's not showing the notes in there, but basically this shows the number of respondents that the question was, what percentage of commercial would you want in the neighborhood of Tollgate? And it was 5%, 10%, there was a range. But anyway, 91% of respondents said greater than 10% commercial. This plan presented by Regents is about 5% or less, depending on how you look at it, depending on how you count the square footage. That is one fact. 91% want at least double the commercial that's Regents is presenting right here. That's one thing I'm listening to. You could go to the next slide, Jennifer. And then only 10% of the people wanted the plan approved as presented after they had the facts of how much commercial was really going to be there and how little it actually resembled Berry Farms and West Haven. I don't know. But most people said the top line was approve the commercial, not the residential. The next one was approve without the permitted use changes, then was approve with less residential, then approve without the permitted use changes. But the overwhelming majority said approve the commercial, but less residential. They do not want 230 townhomes in the front of Tollgate. And that's exactly what this rezoning allows.
Thank you. All right, Graham?
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. McGowan, if he's here. Is anyone here? In December, I just want to be clear on this one point. In December, and this is my only question for you. In December, you told Tollgate residents you would start building the first commercial building in the spring, and you would finish it before the end of this year. Is that still your plan? Are you going to do what you said you were going to do?
Well, the bottom line is we've got a lot of moving parts of what has to happen. Everything from sewer to approval of plans and things of that nature. We do have it in the process of leasing. Our leasing agent's here tonight. We did have a restaurant at one time. That gentleman can't move forward for various reasons. We have secured a possible another major restaurant to go in there. We hope to have that finalized in the next 30 days. But the bottom line is we've got the preliminary plans approved. We want to get the people that are going to be in the building to be able to finalize that. We would love to have that building under construction by fall of this year. When it gets finished will be the time when we were able to get it finished. So the bottom line, we are moving forward with it. We intend to build those buildings that we got approved out there. We've already got banks who said, you get A, B, C, and D done, we move forward with it. So we do plan to submit that building fairly soon. The architect's ready to go to do the design of the interiors of the different tenants that are going there. So the bottom line is we have all intentions of building the buildings that we got, the 3 buildings we got in the front, and move forward with that.
Well, I believe you have the intentions. What I want to know is, are you going to do what you said you were going to do?
Well, the bottom line in this business, we don't produce buildings like you do a car. You can push a little button and that little machine comes together and bring all those parts together and produce a car down there at the plant. We have to get a lot of things in position for it. And so the bottom line is we are going to build those commercial buildings out there. When all the stars and the moon come together just right, with the tenants come in and the sewer gets there and everything else, we will be building those buildings.
But
And as far as the exact date, in our business, we don't promise anything when it comes to exact date because we're so affected by weather. If you ask the average developer right now, they're running 6 months behind because of weather. I'm trying to get things done, but the bottom line is I can't give the exact date, but I can assure you we will be building those along with all the other buildings we plan to build out there.
But in December, to the presentation to Tollgate residents, you did give an exact date.
Well,
You
we
did
gave
say-
you an estimate date. We didn't give you a guarantee. There was no guarantee of anything at that date. We gave you a date that we're moving. It's just like trying to get all this done. Trying to get things done through the city takes a while. Just to get the sewer plans improved and everything else. And so we do plan to move forward, but we aren't guaranteeing you a guaranteed date. We do the best we can do.
All right. And I did have a question, a quick question for Joe. So when they do come forward, whenever, with whatever they come forward, I expect from that answer, it looks like we're going to see a lot of townhomes way before we see any commercial building, way before. A new traffic study is going to be needed, correct?
For the commercial buildings or for the
For the
rest?
next plat that comes forward to the planning commission.
If it's different from what's already proposed for the front of Tollgate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and even if it's the same, it's my understanding, and tell me if you agree, they have already, even with what's currently planned, they've already exceeded the trip count that requires the full left and right turn secondary access.
That is a conversation that we have to have with them because
All right.
at least some of our estimates show that it may be over that threshold.
Yeah, mine too.
Yep.
All right, so if that's true, I don't want it to be a finger-pointing exercise between Regent Homes and MBSC of who's going to pay for that cost.
Yeah.
So who's going to pay for that cost, in your opinion?
Again, if it requires the full access, then the development group has to pay for that
Okay,
improvement,
so it's MBSC will pay, not Regent Home.
or a combination of the two. However they want to work that out, that's fine, but it's not going to be the town.
Okay. All right. Like I normally do, I want to give my reasons. I don't want people to think I'm making baseless. I've got no idea what I'm doing. Here are the reasons, the main reasons why I'm voting against this development. And the first one is, contrary to what you heard, I don't believe most Tollgate residents support the residential in the front. I don't believe that's true. And we know for a fact in the last election, the overwhelming majority of people in Tollgate who actually voted in a real election voted against the candidate who was all for townhomes in the front of Tollgate. I believe that will hold again in the upcoming election. Time will tell. We'll find out. Second reason, I have no doubt that this harms property values. It's not going to help Tollgate Village property. It's going to harm them, and it's going to worsen our quality of life, especially in terms of rush hour traffic. It's not going to help us. It's going to hurt us. I also fear, although I'm liking what I'm hearing from my town administrator, I fear that once we approve this, the developer will somehow manage to wiggle his way out of his burden of building that full left and right turn secondary access road that we were promised, and the developer should pay for it, not taxpayers. Next, our town, what we really need is more commercial. We don't need more residential, especially this type of residential. We need more commercial, And these amendments that we're going to approve tonight, I have no doubt that's going to happen by 3-2 vote. They permanently destroy all that prime commercial land, and it's going to be replaced with high-density residential townhouses and condos. That's going to happen. And even worse, these amendments, the way they're structured, it's perversely makes the land more valuable for residential than it does for commercial, because it doesn't use residential density, which is about 4 homes per acre. It uses the neighborhood commercial density of 12 homes per acre, making, perversely, exactly the worst of all possible worlds. We lose on the commercial that we need, and we get the residential that's not going to pay for itself. It's going to put upward pressure on your taxes, and we get that instead. That's not good. I also believe strongly that government officials should protect the residents we serve from developers who use bait and switch marketing tactics. And in this case, 3 members of this board have failed to protect residents, and 1, Alderman Bell, actively helped financially harm the residents he's supposed to be serving.
Excuse me? God.
Yeah.
Next.
Graham, just wrap
Next.
it up, please.
I'm not done.
Wrap it up.
I
You made your points.
I believe government officials should also strive for consensus and work to unite people, not divide them. Contrary to what some of the public comments that we heard, in this case, the truth is, just a couple of years ago, the board and the planning commission unanimously agreed that zoning for the front of Tollgate should prohibit townhomes and multifamily buildings, but permit mixed-use buildings. This was a down-the-road, down-the-middle compromise which almost all residents could live with. We had consensus, it was a big compromise, and we had peace in our community, not just in Tollgate, in the entire town. Now, what's happening is 3 members of this board, but again, especially Alderman Bell, are directly responsible for dividing the residents by overturning that consensus that we worked so hard and long to achieve. Now we have residents fighting residents. It's a wonderful situation, something to be proud of. All right.
We have aldermen fighting
then-
aldermen is what we have
And
going
then
on. It's not presidents.
two concluding comments. I believe now Mayor Napier can stop arguing that our LDO should not be amended because it needs more time to season. The seasoning is over. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing in the LDO that can't be amended anymore. Also, it's now clear to me that Mayor Napier's Growth Without Regret campaign platform was just slogans that he used to persuade people, including me, to vote for him. I can confidently make that statement because these zoning amendments, when measured by Mayor Napier's own evaluation criteria, the answer is regretted growth, not growth without regret. So if Mayor Napier truly believed what he campaigned on, all the campaign tenets of that Growth Without Regret platform, he would be voting against this, not for it. And the last thing I want to say is I want to make a public apology. An apology to any resident who voted for Alderman Stover because I asked them to. Before the presidential election,
This is political speak.
Alderman Stover gave his
This is
word.
all hot air political speak. I think you've made your points.
Alderman Stover gave his word of honor to me that he would not vote to
We're gonna
permit
vote.
townhomes in the front.
We have a motion and a second. Okay?
Be careful, Bob, when people give you
Enough.
the word of honor.
You made your final point? Because we don't
Well,
need to
you're
get in
cutting me
political
off
speak.
again,
There'll be
as
time for
usual.
that. There's plenty of time for that.
As usual.
And then
No
it can happen
tolerance.
outside this meeting, but we don't need to bring it in here. Okay? We got a matter at hand. I got a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
No.
Opposed?
Opposed. 3-2, it passes.